She mistook a billionaire heir for the porter carrying her bags, but that mistake changed everything. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let us return to our main character. The soft hum of conversation and the clinking of crystal glasses filled the grand lobby of the Lexington Hotel in New York City. The chandelier light draped the marble floors in golden warmth, every corner exuding wealth and confidence. Guests swept past in designer gowns and tailored suits, each movement polished like a dance. But standing at the entrance, clutching the strap of her worn canvas bag, Anna Brooks felt entirely out of place. Her reflection in the tall glass door made her cheeks burn. The thrifted dress hung awkwardly against her frame, the hem she had sewn herself already beginning to fray. Her shoes, once black, had dulled into gray scuffs. Still, she straightened her shoulders. Tonight was important. Tonight, she promised herself, she would attend the networking mixer her friend insisted on. This was supposed to be a chance, however small, to meet someone who might believe in her dream of an art studio. Her heart pounded as she crossed the glossy floor, murmuring under her breath, "Table 12, table 12." She tried to ignore the looks from passing guests, who seemed to know instantly that she did not belong. At that exact moment, a young man with dark hair swept neatly back stepped through the revolving door. He wore no tuxedo, no bow tie, only a crisp shirt with the sleeves rolled up, carrying a small leather satchel slung over his shoulder. Anna caught his figure from the corner of her eye. He looked ordinary enough, like a hotel worker rushing between shifts. Before she could think twice, she waved him over. "Excuse me," she said breathlessly, shifting the weight of her suitcase toward him. "Can you please take this up?" "I am already late." The man froze. His sharp gray eyes flickered from her flushed face to the handle of the suitcase she had shoved toward him. For a second, he seemed ready to correct her mistake, to tell her that he was no porter. His family name opened doors to skyscrapers, to penthouses, to companies worth billions. But Anna did not know that. To her, he was just a man standing in the wrong place at the right time. Something about her tone, the tremor of nerves she tried so hard to hide, stopped him. He closed his mouth, swallowed the truth, and took hold of the handle. A faint, almost mischievous smile tugged at his lips. "Of course, ma'am," he said softly. "Where would you like me to take it?" Anna blinked, surprised at his politeness. She pointed toward the reception desk. "Thank you, just over there. I cannot believe I almost tripped carrying it." He wheeled the suitcase with ease, though his suit was far finer than any hotel worker's uniform. She followed, cheeks cooling, reassured by the thought that at least one person here treated her with kindness. "Busy night?" she asked casually, trying to mask her embarrassment with chatter. "You could say that," he replied, amused by the absurdity of the moment. She sighed. "These places always make me feel like I am walking into someone else's dream." He glanced at her, curious. There was no calculation in her eyes, no recognition of who he really was. She simply saw a man helping her. That was new. That was refreshing. At the reception desk, she smiled, lifting her chin with gratitude. "Thank you again. I am sorry for bothering you." He tilted his head. Not a bother. His voice carried an edge of intrigue. He wanted to ask her name, to know why she carried herself with such defiance despite her fraying dress and trembling hands. But before he could speak, someone called his name from across the lobby. A hotel manager in a suit gestured urgently, unaware of Anna's mistake. Her eyes widened. You are not the porter, are you?" His silence was answer enough. The color drained from her cheeks. Heat flushed her ears. "Oh my God," she whispered, clutching her bag tighter. "I am so sorry. I cannot believe I just did that." She spun on her heel, hurrying away before he could say anything more. The crowd swallowed her up. Her shoulders hunched with shame. He stood still, the suitcase handle still warm in his grip, watching her vanish. A strange mixture of regret and curiosity stirred in his chest. He had been mistaken for many things in his life: heir, investor, opportunity, but never for something so ordinary, so human, as a hotel porter. For the first time in years, Ethan Parker felt an unfamiliar pull. The mistake should have ended there, but instead, it lit a spark he could not ignore. He whispered to himself, barely audible over the buzz of the lobby, "Who are you, Anna Brooks?" And that mistake was only the beginning. Across town, Anna Brooks collapsed onto the worn couch in her small apartment. The door creaked shut behind her, and the silence of the room pressed in. She kicked off her shoes, the scuffed soles catching on the thin carpet, and buried her face in her hands. The humiliation of the hotel lobby clung to her like a second skin. She had made a complete fool of herself, mistaking a guest for a porter, ordering him around as if she belonged there. Her chest tightened with the memory. She had not even learned his name, yet the image of his gray eyes lingered, calm and curious, like he had seen through her embarrassment and into something deeper. She shook her head. No, she could not think about that. The apartment was small, barely more than a single bedroom with a kitchenette. The refrigerator hummed weakly, stocked with little more than leftover takeout and a half-empty carton of milk. She pulled a sketchbook from her bag and flipped through the pages. Pencil lines filled each sheet, quick strokes of faces she had seen on the subway, children in the park, the shape of buildings against a pink sunset. Drawing was the one place she felt like herself, the one dream she refused to let go of. "Anna!" Her roommate Jenny peeked out from the hallway, a laptop balanced on her knees. "How was the mixer? Did you meet anyone?" Anna groaned into the pillow she had pulled onto her lap. "You do not want to know." Jenny raised an eyebrow, setting the laptop aside. "That bad?" Anna sighed and told her the story in a rush. The wrong suitcase, the man's silence, the realization that he was not the porter. "And then I just ran," she finished, cheeks heating at the memory. Jenny smothered a laugh with her hand. "Oh my God, Anna. That is straight out of a romantic comedy." "It is straight out of a nightmare," Anna muttered. "He probably thinks I am insane." Jenny shrugged. "Or he thinks you are interesting." "You said he was nice, right? Not angry?" Anna hesitated. "He was kind, almost amused, like he was playing along." "See, maybe it is not the end of the world." Jenny gave her a small smile. "People make mistakes." But Anna did not feel reassured. She needed stability, not another reminder of how far she was from the life she wanted. Rent was due in 2 days, tips from the cafe were barely enough for groceries, and her hours had been cut again. She closed the sketchbook, her fingers resting on the cover like a silent promise. She would not give up, no matter how small her world felt. The next morning came too soon. The alarm buzzed at 6 o'clock, and Anna dragged herself out of bed. She tied her hair into a messy bun and pulled on her uniform. Black slacks, white shirt, a coffee-stained apron folded in her bag. At the diner on Fifth Avenue, the smell of burnt coffee and frying bacon clung to her clothes before she even started her shift. "Morning, Anna," called her manager, a heavy-set man with tired eyes. "Double today. We are short-staffed again." She forced a smile. "Got it." By mid-morning, her feet ached, and her voice rasped from repeating the same cheerful greetings. "Coffee or tea? Eggs scrambled or over easy?" The clink of plates, the hiss of the grill, the endless requests blurred together. She balanced trays heavier than her arms wanted to hold, delivered refills, and swallowed her frustration when customers barely looked at her face. During a short break, she slid into a booth by the window and pulled out her sketchbook again. Between bites of a stale muffin, she drew a quick sketch of a little girl tugging on her mother's coat outside the window. For a moment, the noise of the diner faded. The pencil moved quickly, capturing life that seemed to slip past her everywhere else. But the reprieve ended when the bell above the door jingled and another rush of customers filed in. She shoved the sketchbook away, tied her apron tighter, and returned to the floor. All day long, the memory of the hotel slipped in at odd moments. The way the man had taken her suitcase without complaint, the strange spark in his eyes. She shook it off each time, reminding herself that she could not afford distractions. He was a stranger in a world far removed from hers. By the time her shift ended, the city sky had darkened. She counted her tips, mostly crumpled bills and loose coins, and sighed. It was not enough for rent, not enough for paint supplies, barely enough for tomorrow's groceries. She tightened her coat around her shoulders against the chill night air and walked home slowly, sketchbook pressed close to her chest. Anna Brooks was tired, broke, and humiliated. But as she crossed the street and glanced at the lights of the gallery downtown, her heart whispered a stubborn truth. She was not done dreaming yet. A week later, Anna sat on a worn park bench, her sketchbook balanced across her knees. The late afternoon sun painted the sky in soft pink and orange, shadows stretching long across the grass. She had just finished a double shift at the diner, her hands still smelling faintly of coffee and dish soap, but she refused to let exhaustion steal this moment. Here, with her pencils and blank pages, the world felt wide again. She leaned forward, drawing the outline of an elderly man feeding ducks at the pond. The strokes were quick, capturing the angle of his shoulders, the way the breadcrumbs scattered in the air. Drawing soothed her, reminded her that she was more than a waitress struggling to make rent. Each page was a fragment of her dream, the studio she longed for, the life where her art mattered. Her phone buzzed with a text from her landlord, a reminder of the overdue payment. The knot in her stomach tightened, but she pushed the phone aside. Not now. She refused to let bills erase the fragile joy of these sketches. As she turned the page, she paused. At the back of the sketchbook was a half-finished drawing from that night at the hotel, her pencil capturing the briefest outline of a man's face, sharp jaw, dark hair, and those gray eyes she could not forget. She had started the sketch without realizing, trying to erase the memory through graphite lines. Yet instead of fading, his image had grown clearer with each attempt. She stared at it, cheeks warming. "What are you doing, Anna?" she muttered under her breath. "He is nobody. Just a mistake." But even as she spoke, she knew it was not true. The memory of his calm voice and faint smile refused to leave her. A voice startled her out of her thoughts. "That is really good." Her head jerked up. A passerby had slowed to watch her draw, a young artist with a satchel of paints slung across his chest. He nodded toward her sketchbook with genuine appreciation. "You have an eye for movement. You should put these in a gallery." Anna laughed softly, embarrassed. A gallery does not exactly take tips and pocket change as entry fees. The man shrugged, smiling as he moved on. "Dreams have to start somewhere." His words lingered long after he left. She closed the sketchbook gently, almost as if it were fragile glass. That was her seed, her anchor. These drawings were proof that she still believed in something larger than overdue rent and endless shifts. When she finally stood to leave, the streetlights flickered to life along the path. She hugged the sketchbook close as if it were the most valuable possession she owned. In truth, it was. Inside those pages lived the truest version of herself. Across the park, Ethan Parker watched from a distance, leaning casually against a lamppost. He had not expected to see her again, but fate had led him here. A business meeting nearby had ended early, and as he cut through the park to clear his head, his eyes had caught the familiar curve of her face, bent over the sketchbook. He stayed hidden in the fading light, studying the way she drew with fierce focus, the way she smiled to herself when the pencil moved across the page. She had no idea who he was, no idea of the fortune that trailed him everywhere he went. And for the first time, he liked it that way. When she left the park, he remained behind, gazing at the bench where she had Saturday. His hand slipped into his pocket, pulling out a small notebook he carried for work. On the blank page, he wrote a single line: "Find her again." Meanwhile, Anna returned to her apartment, her heart lighter than it had been in days. She did not know why, but the act of drawing in the fading sunlight felt like hope. She pressed her sketchbook against her chest before setting it gently on the nightstand. That night, lying awake in the quiet of her tiny room, she whispered to herself, "One day, Anna, one day this sketchbook will open doors." No, she did not know it yet, but those words would soon become a prophecy. 2 days later, Anna sat at the corner table of a quiet cafe tucked between a laundromat and a bookstore. The place was small, its walls lined with shelves of secondhand novels, the air thick with the smell of roasted beans. She liked it here. It was not glamorous, but it was affordable, and no one cared if she stayed for hours with only a single cup of coffee and her sketchbook. She had just finished sketching the steam curling up from her mug when the bell over the door jingled. A familiar figure stepped inside, shaking rain from his dark hair. Her heart stopped. It was him, the man from the hotel. The man she had mistaken for a porter. Panic surged through her. She ducked her head, flipping her sketchbook closed as if it could shield her from recognition. But it was too late. His eyes swept the cafe, landed on her, and he smiled. Not the polished, distant smile she had expected from someone who clearly belonged to another world, but a warm, almost relieved smile. He walked over. "Mind if I sit?" Her pulse raced. You are," she faltered, cheeks heating. "Someone who owes you a coffee," he said lightly, pulling out the chair before she could protest. "Last time we met, you looked like you were carrying the weight of the world. At least let me help you carry a cup today." She blinked, caught off guard by his tone. "You are not angry? I made such a fool of myself at the hotel." "Not angry," he said, studying her with quiet amusement. "Actually, it was the most honest moment I have had in a long time." Anna frowned. "Honest? I thought it was humiliating." "Maybe. But you saw me as ordinary." He leaned back in his chair. "You have no idea how rare that is." She tilted her head, unsure what to make of his words. "So, what do you do exactly?" He hesitated, then smiled faintly. "I work in tech." Tech?" She brightened slightly. "Like coding in apps? That is cool." "I am terrible with computers." "Something like that," he said. The conversation flowed more easily than Anna expected. She told him about the diner, about the regulars who always ordered the same thing, about the night shifts that left her drained. She admitted shyly that she loved to draw, though she did not dare show her sketches. To her surprise, he listened closely, as though her words mattered. Most people brushed her off when she spoke of art. But he leaned forward, asking gentle questions, encouraging her to share more. His laughter was quiet but genuine, and she found herself smiling in return, her earlier embarrassment fading like morning mist. "You are not what I expected," she said at one point, tapping her finger against her mug. He raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "My friend told me blind dates are always awkward, that men are usually reserved or self-absorbed. But you—" She paused, searching for the right words. "You are easy to talk to." His lips curved into a small smile. "So are you, Anna." Her breath caught. Hearing her name on his tongue felt strangely intimate, though she did not remember telling him. Maybe he had overheard it at the hotel. She brushed the thought aside, focusing instead on the warmth in his voice. Time slipped by unnoticed until the cafe began dimming its lights for closing. Anna gathered her things reluctantly. "I should go. My landlord is probably waiting to remind me about rent again." He studied her for a moment, the faintest shadow of concern in his eyes. "You should not have to carry everything alone." She gave a short laugh. "That is life, right? We carry what we can." As she stood, her sketchbook slipped from her bag and landed on the table. He reached for it, but she snatched it up quickly, cheeks burning. "It is nothing, just doodles." "Somehow, I doubt that," he said softly. She did not answer, only hugged the sketchbook to her chest and offered a small smile. "Thank you for the coffee." He nodded, watching her walk into the rainy night. Once again, he had the urge to call her back, to tell her the truth about who he was. But something held him still. She trusted him because she thought he was ordinary. And for now, he wanted to stay exactly that. As she disappeared down the street, Ethan Parker sat alone in the quiet cafe, the echo of her laughter lingering in his mind. For the first time in years, the world did not feel quite so heavy, and he knew, without question, that he would see her again. The following weekend, Anna invited Ethan to her apartment. It was not something she usually did, but after hours of conversation at the cafe, it felt natural. She wanted to show him the place where her life truly unfolded, not the polished surfaces of someone else's world. Her building was old, its bricks faded, the stairwell creaking with every step. She warned him with a nervous laugh. "Do not expect much. It is not the Lexington Hotel." Ethan followed her up the narrow stairs, carrying a paper bag of groceries he had insisted on bringing. "I did not come for chandeliers," he said lightly. When she opened the door, the small apartment revealed itself. The living room doubled as a bedroom, with a pull-out couch tucked beneath a leaning bookshelf. A few plants struggled in chipped ceramic pots on the windowsill. On the wall hung sketches taped side by side, a mosaic of her hidden world. Ethan paused, his gaze sweeping across the drawings. Faces, street corners, dancers mid-spin, a boy chasing a kite. The lines carried life, depth, emotion. "You did all of these?" he asked quietly. Anna flushed, suddenly self-conscious. "Yes, they are nothing special, just practice." "They are not nothing," Ethan said, stepping closer. "They are alive." She shrugged, trying to laugh off his praise. "Alive does not pay rent." They sat together at the small kitchen table, eating the pasta she had cooked with what little she had. The food was simple, but the conversation filled the air like music. She spoke of her childhood, of the father who had taught her to draw before he passed away, of the mother who worked 2 jobs until she grew too sick to continue. Ethan listened, his expression softening with each detail. When she asked about him, he deflected with vague stories about growing up, about traveling for work. He did not mention the estate, the board meetings, or the wealth that stretched beyond numbers she could imagine. He wanted her to know him without the shadow of money. Later, they walked to a small gallery downtown. The opening was modest, local artists displaying their work. Anna's eyes lit with admiration as she moved from painting to painting, pointing out brushstrokes and color blends. Ethan watched her more than the art, memorizing the way her hands gestured in the air, the glow on her face when she spoke of something she loved. As they stood before a watercolor of a city skyline, Anna whispered, "One day, I will see my work hanging here. Maybe not this gallery, maybe somewhere else, but I will." Ethan smiled, the weight of her words pressing into his chest. She had no idea how much he wanted to make that dream real for her. That night, when he walked her back to the apartment, she lingered at the door, sketchbook pressed against her side. "Thank you," she said softly, "for listening, for not laughing at me." "I would never laugh at you, Anna," he replied. "You make the world brighter." Her breath caught, her heart unsteady. She managed a smile before stepping inside, closing the door gently. Ethan stood in the hallway a long time after, staring at the peeling paint and worn carpet, and realizing that this small, imperfect world had become the only place he wanted to be. The night of the gala arrived, glittering and loud, a celebration of charity and wealth held in the grand ballroom of the Parker Foundation. Crystal chandeliers spilled light across marble floors. The sound of violins floated above the clink of champagne glasses, and every guest looked as though they had stepped straight from a magazine cover. Anna stood near the edge of the crowd, clutching her sketchbook like a shield. Jenny had convinced her to come, promising it would be a chance to network, a chance to see art collectors and philanthropists who could one day support her dream. But Anna already felt swallowed by the grandeur, her thrifted dress pressed carefully, her shoes polished until they shone. She tried to steady her breath, reminding herself that she belonged in any place where art was celebrated. Her eyes scanned the crowd and then froze. At the center of the ballroom, surrounded by reporters and flashing cameras, stood Ethan. But not the Ethan she knew. Not the man who had carried her suitcase with a smile, or the man who ate pasta at her rickety kitchen table. This Ethan wore a tailored tuxedo that fit him like it had been sewn by hand, a diamond watch glittering at his wrist. His name echoed through the speakers as the master of ceremonies announced, "Please welcome our guest of honor tonight, Ethan Parker, heir to the Parker Enterprises fortune." The words struck her like glass shattering in her chest. Billionaire Heir, Parker Enterprises, guest of honor. Her sketchbook slipped from her fingers, landing against the polished floor with a soft thud. A passing guest bent to pick it up, but Anna grabbed it first, clutching it tightly to her chest as if it could hide her crumbling world. Her heart pounded. Every conversation they had shared rushed back through her mind. The vague answers about his job, the way he never spoke of his family, the ease with which he listened to her stories but never gave his own. It had all been a lie. She pushed through the crowd, her breath shallow. At the edge of the ballroom, Ethan spotted her. His face brightened, but the joy faded quickly when he saw the storm in her eyes. He excused himself from the group of executives and hurried toward her. "Anna," he said, his voice low, almost desperate, "please, let me explain." Her chest heaved as she shook her head. "Explain? You let me believe you were ordinary. You let me open my heart to you, and all the while you were laughing behind some billionaire mask." His jaw tightened. I was not laughing. I just wanted you to see me without the weight of my family's name. You lied, she whispered fiercely. Every moment we spent together, every word, every silence, it was all built on lies. The crowd around them buzzed, sensing tension. Cameras turned their way. Somewhere in the background, Jenny called Anna's name, but Anna did not hear. Her world had narrowed to the man standing in front of her, the man she thought she knew. He reached for her hand, but she stepped back, her voice breaking. Do not touch me. I thought you were different, Ethan. I thought you were real. But you are just another man who hides behind money. Tears stung her eyes as she spun away, pushing through the ballroom doors into the quiet of the hallway. The laughter and music from inside felt cruel now, a celebration she no longer wanted any part of. She pressed her back against the cool marble wall, her sketchbook clutched so tightly her knuckles turned white. Inside, Ethan stood frozen, the ballroom lights suddenly too bright, the champagne suddenly bitter. He had wanted to protect her from the truth, but instead he had destroyed everything, and as the applause swelled for the next speaker, he knew he had lost her not to poverty, not to circumstance, but to his own silence. Anna hurried down the marble corridor, her heels striking against the polished floor, as if they were trying to escape with her. Her vision blurred with tears, and she pushed through the heavy doors leading out into the night air. The chill wrapped around her, but it did nothing to cool the fire in her chest. She had believed him. She had trusted him. And all along, he had been the heir to one of the most powerful families in the city, hiding behind carefully chosen words. The sound of footsteps echoed behind her. Anna, wait. Ethan's voice called out, rougher than she had ever heard it. She spun to face him, her sketchbook clutched tight to her chest. Why should I? So you can invent another excuse? His hands flexed at his sides, helpless. I never meant to hurt you. I just wanted to know you without the walls, without the name, without the money. She let out a sharp laugh that cracked under the weight of her pain. Without the money? Do you even hear yourself? You have no idea what it is like to scrape together tips just to keep the lights on, to choose between paint supplies and groceries. And yet you let me think you were struggling too. That you understood. You do not know my world, Ethan. You never will. He took a step forward, but her glare stopped him cold. Anna, please. Everything I felt with you was real. She shook her head, voice breaking. Real? Real people do not lie about who they are. Real people do not let someone bare their soul while they hide theirs behind a mask. For a moment, silence stretched between them. The city noise drifted in from the street, a taxi horn blaring, laughter spilling from a group of guests arriving late. But in that quiet, another wound tore open. A voice from behind them cut sharp and cruel. Of course she thought you were ordinary, Ethan, a woman sneered. Anna turned to see a tall figure step into the light, her sequined gown shimmering like armor. Because you never told her the truth. And now she knows what everyone else does. Girls like her only want what they can never afford. The woman's words slashed through Anna, but she refused to flinch. She tightened her grip on her sketchbook and lifted her chin. I never asked for his money, she said, her voice steady. I wanted honesty. I wanted respect. But I guess those are things money cannot buy. She turned on her heel and walked away, her heart pounding, leaving Ethan standing between two worlds, the glittering ballroom behind him and the woman disappearing into the shadows ahead. For the first time in his life, Ethan Parker realized he might lose the only person who had ever seen him for more than a fortune. And this time, he had no one to blame but himself. Days passed, but the echo of that night clung to Anna like a shadow she could not shake. She buried herself in double shifts at the diner, sketching only in quiet moments before bed, trying to push away the memory of Ethan's face, the sound of his voice calling her name. Yet every time she opened her sketchbook, her pencil betrayed her, sketching fragments of him, his jawline, the crease near his eyes when he smiled, the way he had looked at her like she mattered. She hated herself for missing him. One Friday evening, Jenny burst through the apartment door, holding a brightly colored flyer. Anna, you need to see this. Anna sighed, setting aside her apron. Please, Jenny. I am too tired for more bad news. This is not bad news. Jenny placed the flyer in her hands. There is a new gallery opening tomorrow. And look at the title. Anna blinked. Across the page, bold letters read, The Art of Anna Brooks, her breath caught. This cannot be real." "No," Jenny grinned. "It is real. They are displaying your work. I do not know how it happened, but Anna, this is your chance." Her hands trembled as she traced the letters. She had never submitted her sketches, never believed anyone would see them as worthy of a gallery wall. A knot formed in her chest. There was only one person who could have done this. The next evening, the gallery pulsed with warm light and the quiet hum of conversation. Guests strolled past white walls lined with drawings, her drawings. The elderly man feeding ducks, the little girl pulling her mother's coat, the skyline at dusk. Even the faint, unfinished sketch of Ethan's face had been framed, the pencil lines raw and vulnerable. Anna stood frozen at the entrance, overwhelmed by the sight. Her world, her private dream, had been laid bare for strangers to admire. And at the center of the room, waiting, was Ethan. He did not wear a tuxedo or a diamond watch tonight. His suit was simple, his hands clasped nervously in front of him, his eyes searching only for her. When he saw her, he stepped forward, his voice low but steady. "I wanted the world to see you the way I do. Your art deserves to be here, Anna. You deserve to be here." Her throat tightened. "Why would you do this? After everything?" "Because I could not let the lie be the last thing between us," he said. "This is the truth. I believe in you. I am sorry I hurt you. But if you walk away tonight, you will still have this, your name on the wall, your art in the light. And that is all I want. For you to shine." The crowd murmured around them, but Anna heard only the sincerity in his words. Her anger warred with the ache in her chest, the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, he meant it. She hugged her sketchbook to her chest, her heart pounding with a choice she could no longer avoid. The gallery fell quiet as Anna stood at the center, her breath trembling, the weight of every eye pressing down on her. She looked at her sketches, the fragments of her soul pinned to the walls. For so long they had been her private escape, the only proof of her dreams. And now, because of him, they had been given life. She turned to Ethan, her voice barely more than a whisper. "You did all this? For me?" He nodded, his gray eyes steady. "Not for you. For the truth. For the world to see what I see every time you open that sketchbook. You changed the way I see everything, Anna. Money and power never gave me peace. But you gave me something real. I love you." Tears blurred her vision. For a moment, she wanted to run, to protect herself from more pain. But then she saw the sincerity etched in his face, the humility of a man who had everything yet stood here risking it all for her. Slowly, she lowered the sketchbook she held like armor. "I cannot forget the hurt," she said softly. "But I can see the truth now. And the truth is, I love you too." A ripple of applause rose as Ethan pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. He opened it to reveal a simple silver ring. No diamonds, no grand display, just a promise. "Anna Brooks," he said, his voice trembling, "will you marry me?" Her breath caught, then broke into a smile that lit the room brighter than the chandeliers. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes." The crowd erupted in cheers as Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger. He pulled her into his arms, and for the first time in her life, Anna felt the world open wide. Months later, they stood hand in hand inside the very gallery where her journey had turned. A small wedding, intimate and warm, surrounded by the art that had brought them together. Ethan kissed her under the soft glow of the lights, and Anna whispered against his lips, "The best mistake we ever made." "Oh?" And with that, their story was no longer about lies or walls, but about love chosen, love fought for, and love that would last forever.